Sweet. Hey, hey. Let's not hit that thing.
Bro, that is sick.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I had so much fun making that.
How long ago did you make that?
Um, it was just sort of a process, honestly. Like I actually started that at the tail end of last year. Um, and all in all, like the duration that it took me to actually like create that was probably around a month. And then it kind of sat on the back burner for a while because I was trying to figure out what else to do with it. And um, I don't know, that was put out in like March or something like that. It's so crazy. It's all a blur with so many different projects on the go. But
I'm curious how the original sound. Like, what does the original sound like? Is it
you
like
could
Metal
you
2,
could
you know what I
like
mean?
no, like not even remotely. It's like total, just straight up like a new wave kind of hip hop track, and just like really banging. You know what you'd expect out of like a nice track with some like sick flow on it. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, you know what? It kind of reminded me of Hacktivist.
Glad you brought that up because the funniest thing is I had actually never heard of those guys before I started that remix. So it was only a couple months ago. My bassist Kyle he's like, "Yo, you should check these guys out, like Hacktivist." I was like, "Oh, this is kind of like what I did with that remix. Holy shit!"
Dude, it was. I mean, bro, that's probably the best compliment because those dudes are so sick, man. They're
They
so
really
good.
are. It's such a unique, like that's what I would call the definition of like modern like rap metal, if anything. Because I've checked out a bunch of their stuff, and it's got like those guitars are just so driving edge, and like the drums are just have that real rhythm to them.
Right.
And from there, I think they're from the UK, I believe, right? And
Yeah,
you've got like that really awesome sort of UK style like rap lyric in it. Like you can really hear the flows kind of come out, and yeah, it's I love them. Those guys are awesome.
I
They're
agree,
sick.
man. I think we have something weird going on with your audio. Let me take a look really quick and see. Um, I think I'm gonna stop
It's
streaming
a
on
cutting in
my
and out,
end, and we'll just keep yours up. Um, let's see.
and if it's a little bit choppy, might have to dial this input sensitivity down a bit. Is
Okay, we might be good now.
everything good?
It's still a little
Test one.
choppy, but
What I can do? I can go here, automatically in determine input sets. I might have to actually have this closer to my face, to be quite honest with you.
yo, Lightbringer, what's going on, dude? We got some people here. That's awesome. Thank you
Yeah, we've
guys for
got light
stopping
in the
by.
house.
We got a few. We got a new
This might make
follower too. Nero the Yellow. What's going on?
my dude Nero.
That's the homie?
Yeah, it's one of the homies. One of the homies.
Okay, let me see if I can I want to hear what the original sounds like.
Yeah, I think you can click through their name on iTunes or Apple Music, and you can probably see all the releases and whatnot.
It's just called Legendary, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Oh, I see it. Here we go. Is this it here? I don't know if you can hear it.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really different because at the time I was sort of stuck with writing and music, and I kind of just took it upon myself. I was like, I want to challenge myself with something new, like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, of course this has probably been done before, but turning like a rap track into some sort of a metal rendition. So I was like, let's see the logistics of it. And at first I really struggled with writing that thing. I had a lot of trouble because I was trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to be doing here? But after a while it started to make sense because the flow of the lyrics should be sort of what drives the rhythm of the song. Because
Yeah.
if you can hear, he's switching back between like, straight 16th kind of bar flows to like triplet bar flows.
Right, right.
And I was like, that's something very metal I can embellish. So in the track, you'll hear that switch between triplets and just the straight grid stuff quite a bit. And I had so much fun with that because I was like, let's see how we can make this all work and fit coherently together.
Well, I think it helps that the lyrics are so like the way he's performing is really aggressive, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And he was even thinking about trying to do a new version where he's like sort of screaming, just for that remix. And I was like, no, like what you're the lyrics here, I think, kind of tell the whole story.
Yeah, I mean,
So I was very
it went
happy
hand in
with
hand,
that.
dude. Like, especially like that's the first time I've ever heard it. Just because I wanted to jam something that was yours before, we got on, and it was just like, dude, this is so like. Did you mix that yourself, or did you have someone else mix it?
All the mixing was done by myself. I did a master that I sent to them, and um, in the end, because I realized it was part of like a remix EP, I was like, well, you guys should get like a mastering engineer if you guys are going to get one to do all of them together because it wouldn't
Right.
make sense for my master to sound so vastly different from everything else. So I did an original one that they were actually really happy with,
Yeah.
but I told them I was like for the coherency, I was like let's get this, mastered by somebody else, but all the mixing, all the instruments and stuff in that all done by me.
All the
Um
instruments, like including like the drums and stuff like that as well.
yeah, which was actually GGD.
Oh,
I
sick,
believe
dude.
the kit I used for that, I think, was the aggressive rock kit because I had just gotten the One Kit Wonder aggressive rock, and I was like, oh man, these are so good, like, just so crisp and punchy.
Yeah,
So I really try to use that to my advantage with everything, and um, I think there's gin bass in there because I
oh,
didn't have the ding wall at the time. And all those guitars were done on the Ormsby. Yeah, so it was done on the Ormsby. It's in drop E. That was a lot of fun to do because it was just a really heavy slammer of a song.
yeah.
Um, tried to make it as dissonant as possible. Tried new techniques and stuff. I kind of try to push myself out of my comfort zone with the writing style and stuff too.
I see. Like, what do you mean by new
Um,
techniques?
um, Well, funny enough, I hadn't really used pick rakes a lot, and that one part where it's like, it's the doodle and then it does like a rake and then goes back into that rhythm.
Yeah,
I'd actually not really tried much of that stuff before, and I mean, believe it or not, I'm somewhat new to the genre of metal, and like it was something all these things, and mind you, this was back like the tail end of last year. Since then I've learned so much, but back then it was a really new technique for me, and like incorporating that I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then there was some other like little bits of tapping part stuff into riffs that I thought was really interesting and kind of tricky to learn at first. And these are all sort of building blocks for some of the stuff I've been working on since, which has been like insane. I feel like I've kind of unlocked a key to a door and like my own mixes. I was like, all right, I can actually do this stuff now and play it. So
isn't that such a good feeling, dude?
yeah, it's incredible. And sometimes it's really hard to achieve because um it's hard to look to the right spot to actually get that to start happening. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time it seems like a lot of people hit a brick wall with their playing or their mixing or their writing style. And I feel like it comes in like these spurts where you get these random insane ideas or you see something that inspires you to do something similar, and it's just like a random key opens up and you're like, oh, I'm like instantly right back in this. I'm like, my passion has been renewed tenfold. Like, it's just like an incredible feeling.
Yeah, that's actually, you know what, a good question to kind of segue into that is like, what do you do when you like, you have a riff and then you don't know where to go next, or you get like stuck, or you know what I mean, or do you get stuck, or do you have like ways of getting out of being stuck? You know what I mean?
That is a really good question. Um, Honestly, sometimes it comes down to if I'm writing a riff and I'm like, I don't know where to go next with this. Um, I'll start writing because usually I'll have a lot of ideas in the back of my mind. If I'm stuck on that riff, I'll actually go and jump to starting to write another section of the same song. So if it was like the verse one riff and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna lead this in. Sometimes I'll actually go jump over to like maybe writing the chorus or the breakdown, perhaps. And then in writing that, because typically it'll be so much more of a different riff, but kind of in the same context of what was happening, I'll start to then pick up some ideas of like, oh, I see how can I actually transition that riff into this. Like, and that starts making more sense. And if I'm really stuck, if I'm like really, really stuck, I hate to say this, sometimes I'll just stop with that song entirely and just kind of put it to the side for a while and work on something else. But I don't really ever find that happen for me too much because I do end up finding the inspiration to follow through with whatever I'm doing. Um, and yeah, and if not, it's something I could come back to in the future.
I see. Yeah, yeah. That's I think that's good. It's so you have like a vault in a way.
Oh yeah, and the vault is getting bigger and bigger by the day, unfortunately.
No, dude, that's all of us. I mean, I think some of us have I know I used to have this issue where, if I couldn't progress in like, like what you're talking about, like a riff and like continue it on, then I would just trash it sometimes. And it's like, man, I shouldn't have done that. I should have kept it around because you're so in the moment that, it sucks then, but then you can come like accidentally stumble upon it again and be like, well, this is kind of sick
Mhm.
actually.
Yeah, no, and the biggest thing too is I even think you were talking to Josh about this on the last Monday's thing or something along the lines of this. One of the biggest things that I actually learned early on in my like music making um stages was try to finish every track you start creating. Like whether you love it or you hate it, like at the very least finish it because for one, you're gaining the actual skill of songwriting, which is something that is really hard to work on unless if you actually finish songs to its entirety. And secondly, sometimes it's really sort of a mindset to just have to push through and stuff kind of starts picking back up again. And the biggest thing was just like with finishing these songs, you just don't like it. But hey, maybe somebody out there is like, yo, this is your hit. This is the one you're going to get like huge for. So, and it's, I think at the end of the day, a little bit of perspective in some ways. But yeah, that's,
Yeah, it really is a tough thing to finish something that you do not like. But I think that's like a lesson in itself. You know what I mean? It's kind of like pushing through the suck, what you think is the suck, and then, kind of like you said, someone could that could be their favorite song. I'm sure you've had that happen.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And then even, you can even liken it to being at the gym and you're like close to finishing your workout and you want to do like 10 more sets. And you're like, I can't. It's just like, man, I'm so dead. And you do it anyways. And then after that, those 10 sets, those last 10 sets, you're just like, that was, I feel like He-Man right now.
Well, it's crazy that you go there because, that can go into kind of like the mental state of mind that you have to be in order to do something like that, whether it's, the working out thing or even finishing a song or even, getting up in the morning to go to the gym or to write a song. You know what I mean?
Mhm. No, that's totally valid because I even think back to like my really really early days of doing productions in Ableton and it was a very hit or miss thing for me. You know, it's not like it is for me now where I wake up and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna tackle this today. There's this thing I have to get done as well, and then this. And it's not an easy process to actually get to this sort of state of mind. But as you keep working on it, you'll eventually get there and kind of achieve that unity with yourself and accomplishing goals for the day, whether it's going outside for a walk or actually hitting the gym or, writing that song you've been wanting to write. You know, there's
Yeah.
it's a
It's a tough
very
It's tough to get into that. You know what I mean? It really is. Like, I
Yeah.
think that a lot of us, including myself, have those moments where you just kind of let the outside, whatever, influence yourself completely. Kind of like, for me, for example, one thing that I used to do a lot was compare myself to others. And, you
Ooh.
would see these people just killing it. You know what I mean? Like when you start scrolling
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, man, why can't I do that? Like, why am I not blah, blah, blah? You know what I mean? And then you start to, or you allow it to ruin your whole day, your whole hour, your whole week, your whole month.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like,
No, dude, say no more. That was something I experienced so much, especially when I came into the metal game.
oh, yeah.
Um, seeing like Aaron Marshall or like Tim Henson from Polyphia or like Nick Johnston and just seeing them play guitar and I'm just like, all right, I'm done. All right, there you go. That's it. But after a while, I started to think to myself like very introspectively and was like, you know what? I don't want to be like Aaron Marshall or Tim Henson or Nick Johnson because there are already people that exist and they're doing their thing and they were born to do that and it's like I need to just find my same sort of thing that I was born to do in that sort of way and not try to um I don't know if this is the right word placate towards trying to be like something I wouldn't necessarily be. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Especially for like the lead writing and all that crazy stuff. It's just like I had a friend to say something and this is like you just gonna butcher it, but he said something just right along the lines of like find out what you're good at doing and then essentially exploit that aspect of yourself
Yeah.
fully because that's going to be the aspect that somebody else in the world's going to look at and be like, "Oh man, I wish I could be like that." You know? And it's one of those things that make us special in term like differentiated between different artists and stuff in regards to just trying to be as much of yourself as possible and honing in on who you are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Oh, we got another follower too. Brendan, what's going on, dude? Thanks for stopping
Hey.
by. Brendan 2015. Is that another homie?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sick. Thanks for
Yep.
stopping by.
Shout outs to Brendan right now.
We have your Lightbringer. He said, "Oh yeah, that's the worst. I've been there. Comparing yourself, yeah, dude. Ugh. It's. I think everyone kind of suffers through it, but it's really hard to kind of speak out about those types of things. They're really personal because you don't want anyone to know, that you feel that way. But little do you know, everyone feels that way, whether they know it or not, or whether they like it or not.
Of course. And there is one thing for me to say as well is that social media, I think, uh, makes it so much worse in the sense that like it's there in front of your face because everybody's on their phones, scrolling Instagram, and it's so very apparent there. And I feel like it's that initial blow to like, my day's not so good. I can't be like this guy, and it's um just that aspect is very present in in social media. I'd have to say.
Well, because they see the perfect take, bro. They see the perfect edit. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
it's hard to differentiate that, like, from there's actually some people, and I think Jake did it a few times as well. Like, he put out like a story. Jake from Periphery, he put out like a story or like a video, and
Right.
he first showed like the riff and how sick it was, and then he showed his camera roll on his phone, and there
Right.
was like 30 or 40 takes, and he said, yeah, I definitely did this on the first take with like, again, like probably at least 20 different just takes of just like screwing it up, and it's just like that is unbelievably helpful to the person who feels like they did it in one take. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, I actually just shot the video for I guess I c- say this now, but me and Josh Lagaya, Dream Sign, we have done a cover of Taylor Swift, and I've actually just shot the guitar and lead playthrough over the weekend. And I have to say, once you have that camera on you, it's such an eerie, weird feeling. Like I was nailing this 100 times throughout the week, and when it came down to like crunch time, I was just like, ugh. And I went in with the mindset like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Try and one take it for every video, and like obviously there'd be some videos that we'd have to cut because there'd be mistakes.
Hmm.
But I was even finding playing it just there, I was like, why am I struggling with this so much? I've wrote this, and uh you know what? No one's perfect. No one
Yep.
is perfect at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I mean, that's being in front of a camera is always kind of like a mental thing again in itself. You know what I mean? It's kind of like pressing record when you're writing a song or like when you're recording a song. Like it's that same exact feeling, dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You just feel it and you're
Um
just like, I got to play it perfect every time because, there's not an infinite amount of takes that I can do or an infinite amount of, space on the memory card or blah, blah, blah. Like I can't delete. You know what I mean? Like,
right, right. Well, pardon me. Um yeah, it's Instagram definitely sort of skews your mind as to like, man, that guy is just perfect because you see every video and it's like, you know, probably after 50 takes or whatnot. And sometimes you have to look past that and see, he struggled probably just as much as you to try and get that perfect video you see in front of you. And it's all sort of shattering that romanticism, I think, behind the social media and the visual aspect.
oh yeah. I mean, that can even go to like recordings. You know what I mean? Like for example, the jam that we heard from you right in the beginning, like that is it sounds so good, and the mix is really good, really tight. Now, I mean, think back to when you started mixing. You know what I mean? Like how would you feel like your progression was comparatively? You know what I mean? Like back in whenever you started mixing, how were your mixes then compared to now? Like you know what I mean?
Oh, like man, it's incredible because I actually have a folder of like a bunch of my really really old stuff, and I'm talking like from pretty much a decade ago at this point. And it's all my original electronic stuff. And hearing that compared to what I'm doing now with like my metal mixes or some of the electronic stuff I'm doing now, I have to say like the improvement has been incredible. And I don't even it happened so gradually that like I couldn't even say where there was a huge like uptick in like experience or whatever. Like it just all happened so gradually. And I think if anything, when I started doing the metal stuff, that almost forced me to kind of get way more like in like my headspace way more into the mixing realm, because mixing metal is not easy.
Yeah.
Like it is not like something ever experienced before. I did like a demo EP for one of my friends' bands back in 2016, and I actually still have those mixes. And I actually was doing comparison, and the mixing I did on that, I just really had no clue what I was doing. Like it's such a stark difference. And I think with a lot of the metal stuff, because you have so many more different elements to work with, and some of them are so frequency dense, and like some of them are so dynamically imperfect. um that really starts to get you thinking outside of the box in terms of mixing and what you can do to make all these elements very clear. So I'd have to say, um, my mixes from, 10 years ago did not have the level of clarity that they did now. And I have to honestly say, it's a lot in part to learning the ebbs and flows of mixing metal music, like for real.
Where do you tend to go to kind of like learn about mixing and how to mix and stuff like that?
Um, well, if there's something I'm really stuck with that I don't know about, I'll jump over to YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
always. YouTube's such an incredible resource for musicians alike nowadays that are trying to find techniques or troubleshooting for a specific problem. YouTube helps out so much, but that for me now is more so like I get a lot of help from my friends, which is so awesome. Like so many other my bandmates, especially because a lot of them are into mixing. Um, they have like knowledge and tips and tricks that I didn't even know about. And I'm like, "Ah, man, I'm like having trouble with this." And they'll give me that suggestion, be like, yeah, so try like doing this in the mix with like this and this. And a lot of the time I'm able to figure it out. And I learned a couple other things in the process because it's like, oh, so I figured out how to do it for this. And I can even use this for like this element and this element now too. So some of it is word of mouth now. I think I honestly did a lot of my learning was like from just the past decade. And back then I was on like music forums, I was on like YouTube, I was reading the literal PDF manuals for some of these VSTs and stuff like that. I put in the
Nice.
work beforehand, so I don't have to do so much of that now because I have a lot of knowledge as to like how to achieve something without having to really figure out where to go to look for it. But there are some times that I do get genuinely stumped and I'm like, let's consult YouTube
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or my
YouTube is your
friends,
friend. Google's your friend.
Yeah.
Your friends are your friend. We got some
Which
subs
funny.
coming in. Hold on. Looks like Looney gifted the sub to Lightbringer. Thank you so much, dude. And then also
Oh my gosh.
Bloopy Brando. Thank you so much for the sub. And thank you for following, dude. I appreciate you, man.
Brandon.
That's
Woo.
sick.
My
That's very
my
sick.
dude.
All the homies, huh?
Dude, the homies are pouring in right now, man. Dude, this I'm so stoked.
I appreciate the homies. Thank you so much for stopping by to hang out. We're this is a really cool thing that I kind of just started doing. I wanted to talk to people about, their perspective on, how they go about tackling things, whether it be through music, through video, through, social media, networking, blah blah blah. And that actually can segue into something that I kind of it can kind of go hand in hand with what you're talking about with reaching out to your friends and stuff like that. Do you
Hmm.
remember a time, because it doesn't seem like that now, but was there ever a time where you worked really hard on something and you thought it was sick, and then you sent it to someone and they started to give you constructive criticism, but you kind of saw it as like, I don't know, like a jab, like almost just like, man, I thought it was sick and you're like picking it apart now. Have you ever felt that way?
So I have a couple things to say about that because I actually have. And yeah, and it doesn't, like you said, doesn't really apply so much now. And I think a really big thing there is sending it to the right person to critique because I think sometimes it's good to get a generalist listener perspective from. So it's like you send a mix to your mom or a family member, someone's just like who listens to music kind of more passively than
Yeah.
how we do like on a day-to-day basis, and you get like a perspective of a just a genuine listener, which is
Yeah.
such a good thing. But um overall, in my mind there's a little bit of a difference with that because you have to sort of like break away what parts are like, oh, I think the bass could be louder here. And it's like the bass is already cranked. And you're like, you shouldn't get the bass any louder. It's like a criticism. So in the end, it comes down to like knowing who's like this almost kind of sounds bad, but it's just like knowing whose opinion to trust because they know what they're talking about rather than just being like, it'd be sick if you just crank that bass there and might that has like no basis or reasoning in the mix, like they're just louder bass versus like you send it to a mix engineer who's like, yes, like the kick drum could come out a little bit more here and the snare could probably duck down a tiny bit if you EQ'd like the something something, right? Where they give you sort of like they really pinpoint it. And I've learned how to kind of acclimate to that because there was a point in time where I would just send it to people like in my early days of music making, and um, I would just get absolutely devastated. like, shame to say, but I think it happens to everybody. And after a while, like I said, you just sort of kind of gravitate towards if you want like actual mix advice that or some advice about the track that's going to help you fix it. You start to find that people are like, oh, I kind of picked that out. You can do that. But I have had exactly that the devastating mix reviews.
Yeah, yeah. I think
And
it's hard to find the differentiates of like, whether, you're sad about it, you're mad about it, or you just kind of take it and, take what they said and try to apply it, right?
exactly. And I think over time the blow lessens and lessens because there's sort of like a mindset where it's like, oh, you don't like it? Oh, it's okay. I mean, not everybody's gonna like the song.
Yep.
It's there's gonna be those specific people like, yo, this slaps so hard, like, oh, like, get super stoked. And of course, there's, because that's the beautiful thing about music of is how subjective it is to so many different kinds of people, and so many other people like different things. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good example is that video that you let me edit. Like the first time I heard that song, I was like, dude, this is wild. Like it's all over the place, it
Yeah,
sounds like to me. You know what I mean?
yeah, that video, like when I first saw his drum playthrough of that, caught me off guard so hard. I was just I was with my buddy, and we're like, let's check what YouTube's got on today for the new subscriptions. And we're like, oh, new Chris Turner video. Like, ooh, this looks cool. And we threw it on and we're just like, okay, all right. And then it's just like, oh my God. I was sort of like, what? We're kind of freaking out. And that's when I was like, whoa, I need to like look at this and break this down mentally. Like there's so much going on that I love and I want to figure all this out. Like this is so interesting. Um and uh cool thing that I'm not sure if I've told you much about, but I knew that I from seeing that video, I was like, okay, I want to do a guitar cover of this at the very least. Maybe get a friend to do bass. Who knows? And I was I hit up Chris Turner on Instagram. It's like, hey, dude, like that Triggered song was incredible. Like, I'm gonna do a cover of it, and we sort of started a dialogue and just talking about stuff. And we got more involved, and then I asked him like, "Are you willing to like do some drum work on a track for me?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I sent him a track to work on. He did like a rough drum edit thing for like what it should sound like. I was like, "Perfect. This sounds incredible. Let's track your live drums." And so he's like, "All right, we'll set a date sometime in the future for me to do that." And as that went on, I was like working on learning how to play that Chris Turner cover on guitar. And I was like, I really hate to do that. I don't want to ask this from him. It's like, hey, buddy, do you think you could send me like your drums only for the Triggered cover? I'm like, it'll just be for the cover, and like I won't send it to anybody else. And he hit me back, and he was like, yeah, I'm down with that. I was like, ah, So he sent me his drums only for that cover, and he's like, just as long as you use this on the cover and nothing else. And that was so much fun to work with. Like, first of all, like, hearing his drums and seeing the waveform and seeing everything, I was like, oh my god, this is like so ridiculous. Like, just seeing how he edited everything, the way it was all laid out, and then actually being able to recreate and build my own like guitar cover for that for the video was so much fun. I was like, oh goodness, this couldn't have gone any better. Like, geez. And of course, I get the video shot, send it to you. You just shot those expectations way through the roof. I was like, well, I'm set. This video I'm excited about. So that whole process of doing that whole thing was so much fun, and everybody that helped with it, just ridiculously talented people. That's all I have to say.
Dude, yeah, that I can't wait for people to see it. Like I can't wait for people to hear it. Like it's so insane, dude. Like again, it was so hard to wrap my head around because of what was going on. You know what I mean? Like there's I guess what I can ask is like how did you go about tackling, like the learning process of trying to do something like that or figure something like that out? Like was it piece by piece or, like what was your process there?
Um, so for that cover in particular, the one thing about that song that actually attracted me so much to it was like when the first break in the drums was like and then it's like and it's just that guitar riff like centered, and then it goes like guitar left, guitar right, and then it comes back with the full thing. I was like, that riff is so dirty. I have to learn how to play it. I was like, yeah, I could probably learn this. Pull up the tab and everything, and looking at the tab, I'm just like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. So for me, in my head, mentally, I started probably with the hardest part of the song that I knew I was gonna have a challenge with first, which was that part specifically. And then um like simultaneously as I was learning that, I was like, okay, I'll kind of go through the rest of what the track was like guitar wise. Rest of it was like at my playing level, I was like able to play it efficiently enough and then kind of streamline the parts together. And eventually I got to a point where I was like, okay, I can actually play the track all the way through, but I'm still having problems at that one part that was so tricky for me. So I would just for I think about a month and a half straight um, start my studio session days off. I would hop in my Ableton project file of like that track. I'd have a loop on that specific section. I'd practice that section through like maybe 10, 15 times, like all the way through, like just keep playing it. And then I would go like to the beginning of the song or where the guitar starts, and then I would just play the song through like a few times. And I did that like to start every single studio session off for about like a month and a half. And then I was like, all right, I feel very confident about this now.
When you had the pattern kind of going on a loop, did you ever at any point slow it down to kind of like really perfect a part at all?
Oh, yeah. No, you know what? That's a really good question. Absolutely. I don't just totally left that out mentally. But yeah, no, that was also another really big thing. Having that in Ableton, slowing that part down. I think I started at like um, around 80 BPM. So I started at 8 BPM. So that track actually does a couple tempo changes. So it starts on 181. Um, right at that part, it drops down to 136. And then towards the end of the song, it goes back to 181. So that part for 136, I was like, all right, let's drop this down to like 80 BPM. And so I was just trying to really slowly start off by getting like the palm muting right for sure, because the palm muting in that part's very, very particular. And then um, getting the alternative picking down for that. I wanted to start really slow, so I made sure to know how my string strokes were going in terms of like as controlled as they could be, and then I kind of bumped it up from 80 to 85 to like 90, 95. And yeah, that happened throughout the course of that month and a half. I made it almost sound too easy. Like I just played it at full speed for a month and a half. That's totally not the case, because I definitely did slow it down quite a bit and then kind of gradually built that gap up to where I needed to be. Um, and I started finally getting up there, but holy crap. Yeah, that was a fun song to learn, definitely tricky, but I am like so thankful for that experience, because that gave me such an introspective on like writing differently, because I actually learning that song and breaking every part down, I like seeing what they're actually doing. Like Dan McNally, the guitarist on that track, is absolutely incredible. Seeing his writing style, how it coincides with the drums, and then going from there taught me how to write a little bit more towards that style of music. So I was like, that's brilliant. And then on top of that, also gave me a very, very good in-depth look about how to control your picking on really speedy riffs like that, because that is where it's going to be at when it comes to recording those sorts of things.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just a lot of lessons learned. I mean, I think that's something that needs to be emphasized because I mean, that's a lot of how, people sound the way they do is because they've taken, from what they've learned in terms, like, I guess a good example is like, I was watching an interview with Pliny and he
Right.
was like, I literally learned like all the Dream Theater covers that I could ever. Like I learned all the songs that I could. And then, he just kind of picked up all these different things. And I think that can go back also to what you're saying with finishing songs, because you're going to learn lessons from that as well.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's um like seeing other people's songwriting structure, I think is a really good building block to even just mapping that out in your mind in general, because
Yeah.
what is a song really? That's such an avant-garde sort of question. It's like what makes a song, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is really just super subjective. But seeing what other people have been doing with their song structures is always so like helps you clue in so much, because you're like, I see what they did with that, because that part almost comes back in this time section, and then this is the chorus and that leads perfectly into here. And so it's helping you build like those mental blocks of like blocking and structuring your own songs, which sometimes is an incredibly daunting task.
Yeah.
I think that's probably maybe one of the hardest things about being a songwriter is learning how to actually write a song like cohesively all the way through. And I think like genuinely just looking at other people's songs and breaking down what they're doing section by section helps a lot, like so much, like invaluable.
Yeah, yeah. I try to emphasize that too to some friends who are, trying to get into the songwriting, thing, and they're just kind of not sure where to start. I always tell them like, "Hey, listen to a song and literally, I mean, if you wanted to, write it down. Oh, there's, this many bars of the chorus and blah 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 verse or whatever they want to call it, you know what I mean? And what is the vibe, Is it like really in your face? Is it kind of chilled out? You know what I mean? I think that's good, also a
Yeah.
good practice too, because then you're going to start to uh, kind of like you're saying, get those lessons and then have it. I feel like it in a weird, like, I don't know, scientific way. It kind of starts to build inside your subconscious of like this is what it should do or this is how I should feel. And I think that another thing that it teaches you is like to feel that. So like when, for example, you're getting stuck, you listen to your riff and you almost have a weird anticipation of like, oh, I wish it went there. And then you're like, wait, I can make it go there. And then you kind of like,
Right.
okay, what do I have to do? What are the little things? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, no, that's totally valid. I mean, and the biggest thing is that I feel like songwriting can't be taught. It can be taught firsthand, but it's almost at a very basic level because I feel like songwriting almost needs to be learnt and implemented intuitively because that's essentially also what gives an artist their own defined sound. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to Tesseract quite a bit recently, and their 2013 album, uh, I can't remember what it is. It's got the black circle in the middle, the white background. A lot
Oh
of those
yeah.
songs on that, dude, the songs on that record, the way they're structured out is insane. And I feel like if anybody wanted to learn some really intelligent songwriting skills, breaking those tracks down would help out so much because the structuring and stuff on them is like so seamless, but yet so complex and diverse.
Altered State.
Altered State, right? Yeah,
That's an
banger of an album.
amazing. Oh, it's so good, man. Like there's some friends that I talk to and that is their favorite album from any Tesseract
Yeah.
album. And I'm like, "Whoa, that's crazy because, you know what I mean, Dan's their main guy and they got Ash for this one, this and that." But it's just like you
Mhm.
really go and just dive into that album and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, dude."
I mean, any of their albums, really, to be
Yeah.
quite honest with you. Like, I think just as like a conjoined mind of those artists together, they're just like, let's make the song like this, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, why not? And then they just naturally, like, very organically build on every single one of their songs so perfectly that like it. I'm listening not so much more to metal anymore, but more so to some like storytelling with some
Yeah,
very
dude.
aggressive and killer guitar lines.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. That's what songwriting is. For any genre, it's telling a story, taking someone on an adventure that you decide where they get to go. And I think that that's the coolest thing because like for me, the way that I listen to music is like and I don't know if I chose this or it just kind of a part of me or like my personality blah blah blah, but it's like you listen to a song, you close your eyes, it takes you to like a place, like a physical place, like a beach or like there's a band that I listen to which is that album there. That album takes me to LA at night. It's like,
Oh, dude, that's awesome. What is that in there in the background?
so this is 847.
Uh, 847.
The album is called Lossless. Very, very cool album. It's like it's rock, but it has a huge electronic element to it. And man, these guys, they're so creative, even with like their artwork and stuff like that. And I was I'm blessed to be able to, call these guys my friends now. Like they were my favorite band growing up. And it's like, I don't know, you'll have to jam it, man, because again, it like it's one of those albums that takes you somewhere.
That is actually so sick. I have sort of a similar story too. So yeah, a vinyl collector. I love that. That's awesome. I don't actually have any of my vinyls here. They're at my parents' place, but I have this one record by the Avalanches called "Since I Left You," and that is like my holy grail of records. Like not only because it's like very rare to find, but this record when I first put this on, like at a young age, like you said, you close your eyes and this whole record just transports you to like a different era It's
Oh, cool.
it's incredible, and the composition and like the sampling and everything. This was like 2001 when this was put out, and these guys used something like 4 to 6 thousand different samples from records from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and it's just entirely like chopped together like record beats, and it's so awesome. Like it, I have to say it's probably my number one favorite album of all time. And it's not even metal. It's totally like an electronic trip hop. Um, uh, it's really hard to describe the genre on it. I think they considered it plunderphonics, but that's a very almost arbitrary name for a genre. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know where to begin to describe this. But it's a really great vibe. And it was massively inspiring to my early days of production in Ableton.
Okay, so I'm gonna put the album that I mentioned. What did you say yours was called? Or do you have Twitch up so you can throw it in there?
Yes.
Throw it in there so people can check it out because I think that's definitely important for people to definitely kind of see if it does the same thing for them, you know. And I'm curious. I'm curious to see where, you know, these albums take you guys because again, for me, that 847 album takes me in LA at night. This one, where if you could like kind of put it in the era, where would you say?
like the Since I Left You record.
Yeah,
Um, this is like very much in an era of like being on a cruise ship and sort of sailing off into like either the paradise or that vacation you've been wanting. Like the whole album is very reminiscent of happier times and um almost relaxation and just like a careless sort of days, you know. It's a very wholesome sort of record that it just sort of tells you just like, hey, like kick back and enjoy life, you know.
those are the best albums, man. Especially the ones that take you out of, you know, whatever it is that you're dealing with. I think that's when you know you have like a favorite album if you can literally kind of just go somewhere else and you're just like gone for a little while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's honestly the most incredible thing, and I still get goosebumps when I listen to it from time to time, like now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened to me with quite a few albums. You know what I mean? Like just those ones that you're just like, man, I can listen to that whenever, and it still takes me there. It's insane.
Even have like I'd say maybe a close second, but this is something that was probably more personal to me. Um, there's another record. Oh, I think it's by a band called Sleep In. They're like a punk rock band, and they did a record called Settling, and it's the weirdest thing, man. I just like it's one of those things that like I just happened to somehow stumble across these guys' music. I had this album on repeat for like a fall season of my life, and I associate this album so heavily with just the beauty and the changing of the seasons and stuff like that, you know, like love lost and love gained sort of thing. And that one is like a very close second to that record for sure. But it's so weird how when we find certain aspects of music in our lives at a very specific time, and it's almost like the stars align for like what that means to us. And these albums are forever changed, like the way we view them. And like this album means this point of life for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's
Yeah.
like it's cool because those are to me more the nostalgic albums where I listen back and it's like I remember that point in my life. Whereas the Avalanches one just seems like it's a transcendent of life itself, you know.
Yeah. So I have a question for Chad because it seems like, Sessions, he says, I don't have an album per se, but quite a few songs that take me there. And then Lightbringer says, Sames, I don't really have an album, but a few specific songs. So what are the songs that take you guys places and where does it take you? Because I'm always curious to, hear kind of hear where it takes you, but then also to kind of like go listen to that song and see if it does the same thing for me or if it takes me to a different place. You know what I mean? And I think that that could kind of go hand in hand with what your mental state is at the current point in time, too, which is kind of crazy.
It's the coolest thing, I think.
Yeah.
That music could do this to us.
I agree, dude. It's I think that's what makes, one of the aspects of what that makes music so amazing. You know what I mean? Because there's the listener side and then there's the creator side. You know what I mean? Like when you can
Hmm.
create something that takes you to a completely different place with unintentionally, that is even like
Right.
amazing. Hmm.
I
Um,
agree. I agree.
so I think that that can segue into actually a good question that I have that I think I tend to ask everyone who writes songs, but it's like when like okay, let's say that you wake up in the morning and you're like, I'm gonna write a song. Like, where do you start?
Mm, that's a good question. Because, like, for me personally, I've always started a variety of ways, and there's never a consistency to that, which I love because I think that's why it's like injected such a variety of music for me over the years. Because, mind you, I've started with electronic music, I shifted into like pop punk, and then I shifted into like metal, which is where I am now. And for like almost all of those genres, there wouldn't. I mean, back in the day, I'd almost just start with drums and be like, "This is a sick EDM beat." But now it's like my perspective has changed so immensely that I'm like, "All right, I have this really kind of cool idea in mind." And honestly, it's sort of like a mix between the two. The first sort of thing is like I would usually start with like melodies. Um, because I tend to like more melodic elements in my music, and I feel like if you start with melodic, whether it's guitar, synth, or even making a melody with a bass somehow, which is totally awesome. Um, that's cool because that actually transcends the track into more of a melody-based track or a very like harmonically pleasing track.
Yeah.
And uh, it's either like that or sometimes I might start with like a very basic idea, bass or rhythm wise. Um, whether it's like maybe if I happen to make like a random really cool drum beat in GGD and I'm like, oh, that's sick. And then I just pick up the guitar and I start riffing. I'm like, okay, that's really sick. And then I just keep going with it. Like sometimes that happens too. Um, or electronic stuff. Like I hear a cool bass line from a track and I'm like, I can kind of go for something like that and then just dive into that. But typically, I like to actually start a lot of my tracks more melodically, whether it's like guitar leads, like harmony wise, where you have like some kind of plucked chords ringing out, or I start with like a melody and then I can kind of just get like a random bass line under it. Because I find the biggest pitfall is when I used to start writing, I would start with just like a straight like I'm writing in this key. I would just like totally pigeonhole myself to like G minor, or I'd be like, I'm gonna write in C major, and that would suck because then the music would sound awesome, but like very clamped to sort of one dimension. Whereas like if you write like some random harmonic or like melodic thing, um, you can kind of pick and choose the lower notes in terms of like what's fitting in key wise and almost then start modulating keys too as you go along, like writing with it. So then that way you're kind of widening the perspective on like the dynamic like quality of that song. Um, and I think it's typically how I do a lot of stuff, like just melodically writing. It's so fun. Like even just playing it around, like playing around with it's fun.
Yeah, that's uh that's interesting, man. It's funny because I have that was a lot of how I used to start things as well. Like I realized that a lot of times that I would start with a clean guitar. You know what I mean? And some sort of melody like you
Hmm.
said, and then it can go to something like heavy, like just out of nowhere, but it stemmed from that little idea that was just like it perked my ears up, you know what I mean? And it causes chain reaction of I mean, there was actually one song I did. It was like a year ago, I think, and it was like an old song in the vault. My friend, or should I say my bandmate, he was like, "This is sick. We need to do something with this." And so I started just kind of riffing on it and messing around with it, and it I finished the song in like one sitting while everyone was there, and I didn't even end up using the riff, the original riff that was like that sparked that whole idea. Like I just didn't even use it, which is
Right,
insane. Has it
right.
ever happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. And there's even one track that instantly comes to my mind, which is hilarious because like it's a track that my band's actually working on right now. Um, so about a year ago, or even more than a year ago, I started like writing this track that I had just named Experiment because to me it was like this is when I started experimenting more with the electronic and the metal elements
Mm.
together. And when I wrote that one, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool." And I sent it off to the band back then. They're like, "Yeah, this is really awesome. This is really cool." And then we actually decided at one point, we're like, "All right, this is really cool, but it seems to be really tricky to take this anywhere." So I ended up almost rewriting it entirely, and there was only some elements. I think only like the synth and bridge elements came through. And I think pretty much almost everything else about the track changed. So there was like that original experiment version, which is locked in the vault somewhere, and this new one now that has that only element was the bridge and wasn't even the guitars or anything. It was like this huge string synth section that was actually had to be key changed, so it's like in a different key now too. And
Whoa.
um it's funny every time I think about that song, and I sometimes stumble across like a video in my videos on my phone of that song because I took somebody who was like so proud of it. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a banger someday. Of course, that song is completely tilted on the side, like completely different now. And it's interesting how there's a track that you'll write, and sometimes that just becomes the B side to the record almost,
Mm.
or it just gets so changed that it's like just a completely different track.
Yeah. That makes me think of you ever heard of the band Mute Math?
No, actually, I have not.
Dude, if anyone in the chat has heard of Mute Math, like please let me know because that band is amazing. Very cool band. They seem to change up their sound every album, which is awesome. But he did this really cool thing. It was like a Periscope or something, the singer. He was like the main writer. And what he
Right.
did was is he went through I think each every or I'm sorry, each stream that um he did a different song, but what he did was is he went through and showed you where it started from the demo and went through each revision to show you how much it changed to the final one.
That is actually wicked
Dude,
because I feel like that happens with like a few artists and stuff out there. Well, they'll have like this one thing and you'll remember hearing it on like a SoundCloud link, and then they finally put it out and you're like, wow, what? This is the same. Like you pick out a couple things, you're like, okay, I remember that, but like, wow, this thing is like completely different. And that process in between is always so insane.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was some revisions where he was just like, I don't even know what changed here. You know what I mean? Which, you know, it happens because we're so involved and so like micro into the little nitty-gritty details of these songs that you make a revision based on like one little tiny thing that you change that you go back to and you're just like, I don't even know what I changed. But it's like, but I guess it's a good lesson in, you know, try to not sweat the little things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just gonna pause you there for a second.
Yeah.
Maybe quick bathroom break, and you can talk to chat here.
Yes, please. Yeah, man. Do
All
your
right.
thing.
There'll be one. It'll be soon, and we'll see what Light and Sessions have been saying about their favorite songs.
Yeah, there you go. See, I was gonna pop in the chat, and you know what I think I'm also going to? I'm gonna put chat on here. Um, Lightbringer said, "Oh, here we go. Bloody Brando." He says, "BNL Greatest Hits Disc One." BNL. I don't know if I've ever heard of that before. BNL. I'm gonna have to look into that. iTunes, I would assume. Um, your Lightbringer. I've always admired the outer space and the song "Leave Out All the Rest" by Linkin Park. Makes me feel like I'm away from all of my problems. There's like a moment of clarity when I'm in doubt. Dude, that's awesome. Linkin Park is amazing, man. Like I guess Hybrid Theory does that for me. Whenever I hear that song, it brings me back to, you know, when I was a kid, listening to them, like discovering them on MTV, like when you've seen when One Step Closer first came out, and it was just like, what is this? I was like really young. I don't even remember, but it was like, oh my gosh, like it still makes me feel that same way. You know what I mean? Sessions, Pink Floyd Echoes, always gives me the feeling of weightlessness, like in a hot air balloon, floating around the world and watching from above since I was a kid. Dude, that's cool. I have to jam that song. Um, for sure, for sure. I had bought Hybrid Theory when it came out on CD. Yeah, dude. Oh yeah, they're the reason I got into making music, dude. Same. Them and does anyone know who that is? Anyone can name it in chat. I'm gonna grab the chat real quick. I'm gonna switch screens really fast. Yes. See if I can make this a little bit smaller. Let's do.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, he's back.
The man.
Okay, Deftones. Yes, exactly, dude.
Ooh,
Exactly.
Deftones are. I think they inspired so many people. To be honest.
Dude, I was just showing him. We were just talking about Hybrid Theory, Linkin Park, and like Lightbringer was saying how it was one of the biggest reasons why he got into making music. And it's like, dude, that freaking album, Hybrid Theory, is so good. And I was just saying that uh, White Pony was one of the albums that did that to me. Like,
Nice.
so good, dude.
It's
This,
funny because, um, like, so you're talking about Linkin Park, right?
yeah,
I I had honestly heard most Linkin Park stuff when I was young, but then for the longest time just not heard much of their stuff. And then unfortunately heard, you know, how long has it been now? Like a few years at least. Chester Bennington. I, unfortunately with that whole thing, and I was just like, wow, like that, like they had such an incredible legacy that they imprinted on the world of metal because not only were they like within the own bounds of how they wanted to sound, but they also hit like a little bit past the alternative market. Like they had such a wider influence. I honestly couldn't like there wouldn't be that many people that didn't know about Linkin Park. Like they had that much of an impact, right?
Yeah.
Just on music in general. So they're one of those bands I never got super into, but the resonation from their legacy is what has always astounded me. It's just like, wow,
So,
those
did you
guys
ever
did
dive
it.
into Reanimation?
Reanimation. Oh, the band?
No, Linkin Park album Reanimation.
Reanimation. Reanimation. Let me see. I'm one of those guys who sees the
The album cover.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, I know where it's at. No, no, that wasn't the one that I knew. It was see the discography.
I think you would appreciate that album, man, especially because you like remixes and stuff like that.
Okay. So Reanimation's the one to look at.
Yeah, it's like a remix album, but different people did different remixes, but Mike did a lot of them, and holy moly, dude, so cool.
And we're talking about an album that came out like how long ago too?
I don't even remember when it came out. Like, do you have that pulled up on the date?
Reanimation.
Oh, Lightbringer, I think Mike Shinoda did some giveaway not so long ago. Oh, that's cool.
2002. 2002. Mind you, that is 2002 with these remix styled like metal tracks you're talking about.
It's they're kind of all over the place, dude. Like I said, that's why I think you'll dig it, is because it's literally rock, hip hop, and like just electronic and great melodies. It's like, bro, it blew my mind when it came out.
See, that's always the coolest thing because you can always like listen to these and these are like the goats. Like these
Yeah,
are the
yeah, yeah.
guys that put this out like 20 years ago almost. And this is what's inspired so many people now to make like the sounds now, right?
Yeah.
So like that's the coolest thing. I love it.
Yeah, same, dude. It's crazy how, you listen to those songs from back in the day, kind of like Sessions was saying, Pink Floyd and stuff like that. It's like, bro, it's you sometimes you got to go back to hear, what they did, and mixes were so freaking great back in the day too. Like it's insane, bro. How good
I
some
honest
mixes are, and how good some mixes are, or should I say how not good some mixes are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, believe me. I mean, I can attest to how good some mixes are, and there's one track that comes to mind um, from Third Eye Blind. I'm sure this is the one everyone's heard. Semi Charmed Life. That track just slaps, slapped then, and it slaps now, even harder almost. And I sit back sometimes and I listen to like these older tracks like that, and I really think I'm like, man, like what were the sort of things they were doing back then to get those mixes to sound like that then that actually still hold up to this very day.
Yeah,
You
dude.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like a really good example is like a band that was a huge influence for me for a long time, Queens of the Stone Age. Those
Oh,
guys incredible. I love Joshua Hame. Um their first record was mixed by a guy named Joe Baresi, and he was all totally out of the box mixing. So none of that stuff was like done remotely on computers and nothing like that. It was all
wow.
like analog gear, console mixing, getting the dialing in tones for like guitar tones for that record took them like 2 days, just getting all the tones right and then recording that. And that record to me just slaps. I'm like, wow. you know.
That's yeah. It's crazy to think that, that's how that was done back then, and it's just so good, and people are still trying to achieve that now, but because of the technology that we have these days, like we're getting pretty close with it being able to do that in the box.
Yeah, exactly. And um I've always sort of hated like, well, hate's a pretty strong word. I'm displeased, more say, with people that are still trying to like that go against like, oh, you shouldn't do stuff in box, like try and get all the analog gear. It's like, you know what? It's cool because that achieves a sound that's like so different and so unique and very raw sounding. But unfortunately, in terms of today's music standards and like what's on the radio and what's being played, it unfortunately just doesn't fly anymore. And I think if anything, being in this year, the 2021, we have so much at our disposal, like electronically in
Hmm.
terms of recording DAWs, like plugins to use, guitar emulators and like amp sims and stuff. It's almost like uh it's almost a disgrace to not be able to use that stuff to our advantage to
Hmm.
achieve sounds greater than we could 20 years ago. Because I think that's honestly the whole point about music is trying to progress it forward
Yeah.
sound wise.
Yep.
Like get the best sound you can have, right? And you know, I think a lot of people now honestly will go for stuff in box. Even like Joe Baresi does stuff in box now too, and he was pretty against it for a long time. But even those guys start to come around and be like, well, yeah, I could get way better stuff now by using something in a computer. And why wouldn't you want to do that? Like it's time-wise so much more efficient. You can have the settings saved, all like the callbacks to the settings and whatnot. And it's going to be something that drives a mix forward even more,
Yep. I
you know.
agree, man. Oh, it looks like Lightbringer. I must apologize. I will have to hop off. It's almost 2 a.m. for me, and I haven't slept in a while. Have a great stream, and Jason, you're awesome, man. Much love, dude.
Oh, dude, love you, buddy.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
appreciate you. Session said something too. I guess it's just not my generation of music. I skipped over LP, but my younger brother was digging them. I always felt that LP would have had West Ball, and I would have been more inclined into it. Great band for sure, but I skipped right past them. Bro, you're missing out, bro. By the time Linkin Park hit the market, I was already miles deep into Meshuggah, growing. Ah, okay,
There you
okay,
go.
okay. Yeah.
Meshuggah.
I see how that can kind of like overshadow what Linkin Park was trying to do, because Meshuggah is such a, I don't know, they kind of slap you in your face and you're like, This is what you can do with music." Like, and you're just like, "What?"
In my mind, and mind you, like, so I've been doing metal production stuff for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years, probably November or December. But I've I had heard about Meshuggah before coming into all of this. Um, but that was a band I knew that had greatly influenced the genres that I'm working with now. Like they, at the time, had undoubtedly changed the game, like in terms of like their polyrhythms, like what we would consider now as a djent sound. Those guys just sealed that deal,
Yeah,
and like it's like they're an incredible band.
bro. They're I At first I didn't like them. I thought it was too heavy. But at that time I was listening to um like I think it was, maybe I was started to listen to Carnival. About that time I was listening to Carnival and like that melodic type of rock stuff, and so it was like Meshuggah was still like a little too heavy for me. But then I got into them and I really just kind of accepted it. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna jam this. And next thing you
Right.
know, like I was jamming it all the freaking time because it was just so groovy. Like, oh my gosh, like they know how it's almost like it's very similar to rap music or like I don't even know what else to say, like a trip hop type of thing because it's the groove is so good, bro. Like,
And that it's almost like interesting to think about too, like who their influences would have been doing that
yeah.
because they started so long ago. Like, let's see, um, supposedly it says 1987,
Isn't that
and
crazy, bro?
that's ridiculously long ago. And 1987, I think of some of the metal bands I was thinking of at the time, that were already very prominent were like Megadeth, Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer. I mean, the big four of thrash. It
Yeah.
was a huge thing. I was one of the long hair metalheads in high school who was absolutely just driving those albums home. And I had honestly wished to God I had heard of Meshuggah sooner because I would have probably gotten like right into this. Like I would have been like from there, my next leap would have definitely been Animals as Leaders.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that talk about a band that has been influenced by Meshuggah, like for sure Animals as Leaders, Periphery would have been the next band. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah. Animals, I think they're definitely influenced by that, but you know what's funny is we I was driving with my mom home yesterday because we went to my sister's, and I was like, "Have you heard of Animals as Leaders?" And I turned it on, and she was blown away. She was just like, because I was showing her like the Woven Web where he does like the thumping and stuff like that, and it was just like,
oh my goodness,
how, what is like, I was just like, these
changing.
guys are like, they Tosin has really like evolved metal in like this crazy way, probably without even trying. Like he didn't mean to do it. He was just kind of, yeah,
Right?
exactly. It's just like,
Like, it's
uh,
ridiculous.
and now he's like, he's a goat in himself, but he's in his own
I,
kind of lane, as kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
he's clicked into his own highway in metal music, and I've always just been like when I first heard of Animals as Leaders, like this is ridiculous. I'm like, there's no way. And I saw videos of Toast, and I was like, wow, this guy is ridiculous. And lo and behold, um, another very awesome, like, I think he's initially funk. A huge influence to Tosin was Victor Wooten for
ah,
his thump technique on the bass,
yeah,
which is where Tosin picked that up. And I was like, that's brilliant. That's genius. Doing it on a guitar, why not? Because you can get just as awesome of a thumpy tone on a guitar as you can on bass, but you can even make it more interesting because the strings are a little bit thinner. You have a little bit more leeway, and you can kind of go around and try and do different things with it too on multiple strings, almost even in a higher register. And I just thought that was brilliant. Like Tenfold has like expanded and pushed the boundaries of the metal world for sure. Like that guy's just done it all.
yeah, yeah. Amazing players, dude. Just the amount of just different things that are coming out even now, you know what I mean? Like bands like Polyphia and stuff like that, but you have, if you really dive in, you can dive into some crazy, mixtures of metal that, I mean, if you think about it, wouldn't work out and shouldn't work out, but they figured out a way to do it. Like what? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's so many
Um
bands. I'm trying to think of one that's like that I can think of right off the top. I haven't been listening to a lot of metal lately, believe it or not.
oh yeah. Yeah. I
I
go
get
through some of those periods too
it,
as
yep.
well.
Exactly. Like it's just like I don't know. But I think that's what happened with these dudes that go off in these crazy tangents. Is like they're influenced by, what, like for example, like funk, like you were saying, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you just hear these crazy dudes. Like I guess a good example would be like what was that? what's that band? Oh my gosh, it's gonna kill me now. I forget what they're called, but they're really heavy into the tapping and stuff like that, like back in the day. And it's just I love when that happens because then again you hear these songs and you're just like, oh my gosh. Oh, Sessions, he says, how about Vitalism, Pagan Part 2? Any thoughts? Vitalism is insane. Those dudes are
Vitalism.
wild. That song
Is
Pagan
this a
is
band that I?
insane.
Oh, this is a band that I've actually never had a chance to. I was gonna check these guys out, but I never had the chance to. You said Pagan Part 2. I'm gonna have to add this to my liked songs and listen to this
Those dudes
out
are
on a walk.
insane, bro. They're very insane. Like their level of skill is kind of like that same realm of just like, wow, how the heck can you do that on a guitar? Like I guess to kind of leeway into um, kind of wrapping this up, but also mentioning about your video coming out soon. Like I did the same thing when I heard that cover, bro. I was just like, what what is going on here? Like how what who what how do you have the skills to be able to do that? Because there's this really cool run in there. It's like I think it's towards like the middle of the song where you're just kind of
Is it
flying
where?
on the guitar and I'm just like your pinky is like going like crazy and I'm just like what
Oh,
so
the I think
crazy.
it's like probably the that one is a really cool run. Um, yeah, no, like that was like so much fun to do. And honestly, I have to give even more credit to Chris himself because I had only heard about Chris Turner last year, very briefly. A friend was like, "Oh, yo, dude, check this guy out," and I saw him do a cover of um, what's the song called? "Hair to the Throne" by I Am Abomination. That was the first drum cover that I saw that Chris Turner did. I was like, "Oh, this guy is crazy. His kit's so weird. It's like his cymbals are really down low, and he's like right up on the throne, like he's almost like standing up, sort of
Yeah.
thing. He's like, just like he's hitting so hard, and I was like, wow, this guy's really cool. But I didn't really look further into him. I was just like, wow, that's a really, really good drummer, a really cool YouTube drummer. And I saw another one. He did another cover of some other song that was really great. Got a bajillion views. And I was like, all right, this guy's really cool. I'm gonna subscribe to him. So I subscribed to him on YouTube, and um, this year he had actually just started. Um, well, maybe it's been no, not even this year. Like last year, I think he started writing. He started writing for his own solo record because he's the drummer and one of the main founding members of a band called Ocean's 8 Alaska.
Yeah.
And those guys came out with a new track, I think just towards the end of last year, which was an absolute banger. And he's been writing his own solo stuff, and he put out his first track last year, um, like as a drum cover on YouTube called 40 Roll. And now I saw 40 Roll, and I was like, okay, this guy is ridiculous. I was like, what is this guy doing? You know what I mean? Like, what is this guy up to? So my interest peaked immensely after I started seeing more videos about him. And this video he did with Thomas Lang, which, mind you, Thomas Lang, one of the goats,
Yeah.
like that guy, insane on drums. Like, what? And seeing like Chris Turner and Thomas Lang almost like in synchronous play back and forth like a call and receive sort of thing on drums. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, this guy is so cool. Like he is really trying to think of new things to make like drumming more appealing. Because mind you, um, you know, drums are really awesome to see, but I feel like sometimes it's not a type of music for everybody to like listen to. So it's kind of hard to get like pulling a larger audience because typically people seeing these like drum covers, they'd be like drummers or like musicians alike. But I feel like even his music is sort of like hitting on something that's kind of like in the same vein as Ocean's 8 Alaska. And I was like, yeah, this is sick. Like I want to see what this guy's all about. And of course, you know, the rest is history when I got in touch with him and everything, and it's been cool. I mean, I think he's posted on his story that he's still in the works for more stuff. You know, his album's still on the way. It's been tough. Obviously, COVID's been a real bitch for everything, but I'm really excited to see how this guy changes the world of metal drumming and just metal in general because of the productions he's putting out.
Have you ever seen his video on metric modulation?
Hmm.
It's so good.
It's it's really awesome. And honestly, his that video is actually what really inspired me to kind of dive more into GGD and start writing more like intricate like fills and stuff because I
Yeah,
think a big pitfall was always like writing fills for me was really tricky. But I kind of heard and saw what he was doing. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like that's kind of a cool thing to like lead into like that. And so like as a non-drummer, like that sort of was a huge educational point for me just to learn like what drums are capable of doing like in
yeah,
supporting of the song because they're huge. They're huge in that.
yeah. Um, Sessions said something. He says, "How about that Chris Badan dude? Any thoughts? That cat writes some pretty good stuff. If we get a chance, check him out. I appreciate you, dude." Um, he also said, "Did you
Dude.
know that Lang was the drummer for Spice Girls?"
Ooh. You know what? I could believe that. I mean, he's got that clout.
He could do anything, bro. That guy can literally do anything on the
Yeah.
drums. He's.
Yeah.
You
Also
ever
just looks like
watch?
a really
Go ahead.
genuinely great guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's
for
just a
sure. Have you seen his YouTube channel?
Thomas Langs.
It's good. He has a lot of
Yeah.
cool like videos where he kind of like sets up his tour drums, kind of like the drums that he's going to take out on tour, and then like what's funny is like I don't know if you've seen these videos, but like he'll be putting it together and like stop halfway through or like a quarter of the way through and just start playing it for like 30 minutes and then he's like, "Okay, let me finish putting this together."
No, I have seen his channel. Yeah. There was a video I was actually watching a couple weeks ago. He was setting up some toms. He was reskinning his toms, and he's like, "Oh, don't you just love the sound of that? The boom, boom." He's just hitting it for like 3 minutes. He's like, "That's a great sound. That's a great sound." All right, so let me show you around the studio more. And he's got like a movie playing on the screen in the background in his room. Like, dude, that studio is an absolute vibe. Like he's
Yeah.
just chilling and kicking it and just like loving the sound of his tom. He's like, oh, that high tom right there, and he's like, "Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do," and he does his whole thing. And I'm like, all right, dude, this guy's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Next thing you know, like it's a 20-minute video and you didn't even realize it because it's the dude is so entertaining. Like,
I'm sorry, guys. I have to cut it off here. I actually haven't even finished reskinning these toms yet, so I've got to go do that. But I hope you enjoyed 20 minutes of me doing random shit hilariously.
and very well, like so good, dude. Everything that he did, like, oh my gosh, bro. The dude is such
It's
an amazing drummer, bro.
it's incredible. I love it.
Well, man, we're reaching at about an hour 40, which didn't feel like it.
I know, dude. Been a blast. Been a
Bro, I
blast.
agree. I agree, man. It was what's funny is this is the first time we've ever talked like this and it was so natural.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always feel like I have such a better socialization with other artists now than I did before because there's definitely moments in time where I like, I'm being a musician. I was like, oh, your guitar is really cool, and like then it was just really awkward. But now I feel way more at home being like, yeah, we're just speaking the same language, and it's cool to meet and connect with people like that because hearing everyone's perspective on music is very enlightening, and I take all of that in always and let it help me grow too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that can be said to, everyone in chat as well, like take everything from everyone, even if it's something that, you realize that maybe you don't want to do, you know what I mean? Take that as a learning lesson in itself. I think that that's the other spectrum, which. Is super important. I always tell people you can learn something from anyone, as even if it's that you never want to be like that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to really just keep at it, and sometimes like I liken it to this. It's like, there's some days you wake up, you're like, "Ah, I really don't want to, I really just can't do music today. I just don't want to do it." It's like that should be the reason for you to do music that day. When
Yeah.
you start saying that and have it drive you, because I guarantee you, by the end of that day, you're going to be thanking yourself and being so happy with what you had done that day. Because it really all just comes down to perspective and mindset, you know?
Yeah, that is very true, man. I mean, why do you think that I started doing songwriting streams every day? Because there was times where I wouldn't even write. Like there was months where I wouldn't write, but it's like now I'm like forcing myself because one, I have people that like to hang out at the streams and I want to make music, but I sometimes I just don't feel like I have the potential to. But because I started this habit of just getting on stream and going, and people in chat are so nice to, you know, if they have an idea, they'll say it. You know what I mean? Which is so cool. And I think it's like a learning opportunity for all of us. Kind of like you're saying, with the whole music community thing, like we're vibing off of
Mhm.
each other. Like even if you stop by and you're like, oh, this is cool. Even just saying that is like that's a reassurance of like, okay, I'm onto something here. I think. You know what I mean?
Like those couple of words can really give somebody that boost they needed, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always so nice and it's easy. Like it takes nothing at all for somebody to genuinely just be like, yo, this is really awesome. And then that helps that person get through that session, or, it helps them like just they push through that mental boundary they were, having a
Mm-hmm.
hurdle by. And dude, and that's why I love coming into your session some days when I'm like I'm working on some sessions for clients and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I'm like having a little bit of break now. And like, I just need to see your stream. And it's just really awesome to see what you're doing. And I'm like, I'm going to go into it just as hard, man. This guy's vibing. I'm going to go into this as vibing as hard too, It's
Dude,
that
that's
great push I
awesome,
need.
man. I love that, dude. I love that, how it can be infectious because, little do people know that, I'm like freaking out because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm like writing music on stream, which is like such a personal thing for some people, and it's just like I had
Absolutely.
had to get that out of my brain and just write
Hmm.
because I know that people feel the same way. And if they can come somewhere and see the whole process, like, bro, yes, please. And you know what? I guess with that being said too, anyone in chat who has, that you've been writing music or whatever, or you're like just kind of at a low point and you on a song or a riff or whatever, I would say join the Discord. And I have like a little music section where people have been posting, riffs and stuff like. Like I had a guy that was like, "Hey, does this sound weird to you?" And I listened to it and it was like, "Bro, this is so cool." Like, and again, it kind of goes back to what you were saying. It's like, it's those that little bit of affirmation that helps someone just break through that little wall. You know what I mean? Huge,
No,
very very huge.
absolutely.
But like I said, join the Discord. Um, Send some jams that you've done. I also have like a little artwork channel, so if you guys want to show anything creative, and that's I guess that goes with saying too with this process podcast is like yes, it's mainly songwriting and music and blah blah blah, but I there's a lot of different things that I do and probably that Jason does as well. And so getting the process of, a good way to market yourself if you're trying to get known in the music community and, potentially making your own graphics to, up your production quality. I'd like to do some stuff about video, so people can have, better quality playthroughs and stuff like that. And so this is not just music, mainly music, but it's the things that are surrounding music. It's the reason why I know how to do all the things that I know how to do. It's because it can push my music career forward. Again, because of the world that we live in, we the song is just the little ticket of everything else that is required of us these days to push forward and to kind of make ourselves known. It's such a visual thing these days. You have to kind of look the part and not just sound the part. Kind of a good example. Whenever I say that, I always think of Tim Henson.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
that dude
yeah.
has such a unique style, like all around.
I mean, I will even go as far to say is he's like his aesthetic is a very attractive. I love it, like the tattoos and everything, hit the sweaters and shit. Like the guy just looks cool as hell. Like that
Hmm.
guy is cool.
Yep, yep. And he has really cool music, but you can it's not just his music. If you really take a look at his whole thing, like a good example is his new plugin in Neural DSP. Like you see the way that the amps look, and I mean it's totally him. Totally him. And that can go with everyone, including people in the chat. Like if you're trying to get well known, you know what I mean? And like for me, the way that I got into kind of doing that was, just thinking that, all these brands that I love, a good example is Get Good Drums. I obsessed over, because I was literally obsessed with Get Good Drums, that I pushed Get Good Drums as much as I could as if it was my own company, because I believed so much of what they were doing. And they were, of course, bands that I loved. Um, the samples were amazing, but it was such a good price, a very, very
Hmm.
affordable. And I think that that's the biggest thing. Like if the affordability and quality, bro, I feel like we should be paying more for this, to be honest, because of the level of quality that these samples have. But these dudes are they want to give back so hard to the community, because, it's what built them up. And it's kind of like why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's because like I feel like I need to give back. And you probably feel the same, Jason, which is probably why you're on this podcast. You know what I mean? Like,
Like every step of the way, man. Like, and I, it's funny because I feel like a newbie to this, but I've seen how strengthened and how huge and like loving and caring this whole metal community is, and it's just incredible. It's awesome to see that, and it's awesome to interact with and gain new perspectives and ideas from, and just genuinely help people out, right? It's
mm-hmm.
like this. It's like you see a guy, you're like, this guy deserves to like get seen. Like this guy's stuff is awesome, you know? And so and everybody helps them get up. So I love that. That's something I will ultimately always push. I'll never stray away from that because I think that's probably one of the most important things to do with, this whole community.
Yeah, yeah. Word of mouth is huge, especially if it's the homies. Kind of like you, mentioning this podcast, and you have your all your buddies come in. Like, very,
Of
very
course.
grateful, dude. And like the way that I met you was through Josh.
And yeah, and the funniest thing I was gonna mention earlier was the way I initially saw you is I saw you on YouTube a long time ago, which was so awesome because I was like, how do I write these damn like one kit wonder drums in Ableton? Like I can't do it. And then I saw your video and yeah, like many, many, many months later, I met you. And you're like, yeah, I got a YouTube channel. I was like, oh, you're not gonna believe this, but
I
and
mean, that's another way,
ultimately,
bro.
that's the coolest thing ever. I love that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's
that
it's the small little group. It feels like a small world, bro.
it does. The connectivity of everything, everybody, oh, you know this guy? Yeah, I know that guy. Oh, no way. Like me and him are like and then everybody just knows everybody. It's brilliant. It's so cool.
I love it, dude. Oh, Session says, does Jason use GGD? He does. Which packs do you have?
Absolutely. So the packs in Ableton that I have on contact, let me just pull this up real quick. Um, so I've got one Kit Wonder Aggressive Rock, one Kit Wonder Modern Fusion, one Kit Wonder Metal, and of course Modern and Massive. Very, very awesome packs, and I love using everyone for a different mix context. So,
Do you ever Frankenkit?
um, after you mentioned it in the past couple of your streams, I've actually been starting to think about doing that more. Because I haven't actually. And I thought that was like, oh, that's really smart. Because it's like I want the China from Modern and Massive, but I'm not liking that China on aggressive rock. You blend the two together and you get something totally different.
Yep.
But I haven't actually not done that yet.
Dude,
But it's
I would.
awesome that contact lets you do that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree, dude. I would definitely look into it. If you don't know how to do it, I got the video, bro. And same thing with
mm,
people in chat. Like, if you guys want to do it, I would highly recommend it because even stacking drums, it's it's a different like you it turns into a totally different sound, which is kind of what you want these days, with GGD getting so popular, which is a great thing, but it's also, you will hear the drums a lot in a lot of songs, which is not a bad thing again, but if you
mm-hmm.
Frankenkit, you're going to stray away a little bit from that.
I have to say, GGD is one of those things I wish I had like 10 years ago. That would have
Yeah.
like, dude, that's something I'm so glad it's out now, but holy shit, if we had access to this like, 7, 8 years ago, woo, sheesh.
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
have to say, like, those guys really drove that home. I'm very impressed.
Well, I think what's the craziest is how fast they put out packs, bro. Like, it hasn't been that long since they've been around. And look at all the things that they have out. Like, it's mind blowing, dude.
That P4 kit, sheesh.
Yep. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah, that's the money right there. That one is probably like that's the one that like that's the general. Like you can go to that one for literally anything. If you want the best sounding in terms of like right away, I think the new metal one, the drums, the actual drums, amazing, bro. Like it's
Incredible.
it's ready to go.
That's the one I wish I regret not buying first because I bought Modern and like Massive first,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and after that I found out P4 was the thing. I was like, oh my god, that kit looked like it would have been, that was it. Mind you, though, Modern and Massive is really awesome,
Hmm.
um, for what it has to offer, but like the P4 kit, woo,
Yeah.
so much there.
Exactly. I think yeah, the amount of things that you can do with it and the amount of drums and cymbals and stuff like that. I think that's what makes that pack amazing. But yeah, Modern Massive is sick, bro. It is so
Hmm.
it's good, like right out of the box. But yeah, bro, get good drums. Thank you so much for being so sick. Okay, man. Well, what are we at now? Almost two?
Yep.
Bro, this has been
Yep.
so sick, man. Thank you so much for coming on and hanging out and like just everything that you do as well. You know what I mean? It's very inspiring, dude. Like seriously.
Thank you so much, dude. And it's been a complete honor for you having me on. And I'm so excited to see the other guys you get on the show in the future. Like, I'm really interested. Like, this is something I'm gonna genuinely tune in for,
That's
just to
sick,
see.
dude. Yeah. I love picking people's brain on this. And this what's funny is this all started because Josh, I met Josh in Denver and I was just picking his brain and just out of nowhere he's like, "Do you have like a podcast cuz you'd be really good at this." And I'm just like, "No, but maybe I should." And so
Mm.
here we are, dude. Like it's really cool. And I mean, you were such a natural on here, man. Like again, like I love the points that you made and, the mental side that we kind of got into. And so it's like I think this will be very, very beneficial for anyone that just loves to hear about the process, right?
Absolutely. Huge shout out to Dream Sign, by the way. Josh the guy. That guy kills it.
Yeah, dude, for sure. I think I'm gonna raid him. He's still on. He's still streaming right now. So looks like he's
That
doing Metal
PUBG.
Monday. Yep, Metal Monday, PUBG. Looks like you can request some songs. I'm gonna raid Josh just because been so helpful and just such a cool dude. And um, I don't know if everyone in here has kind of already went to him, but if you haven't, follow him. Tell him hi. Tell him who sent you. For those of you who are subbed, let's get him a yes, please. But let me get this
Yes,
set up.
please.
I'm gonna let's do dream sign. Okay. Starting the raid, I think.
Hell yeah.
Here we go. All right, dudes. So I'll be on tomorrow. We'll probably just do some songwriting. Um, I hope to see you there. And again, thank you again, Jason. You are the freaking man, bro.
Thank you so much.
Let's go. Here we go. All right, we are rated, bro. That was so much fun, dude.
Dude, that was sick. That was fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, it was a
Thank you.
lot of fun, dude.
Thank you so much for having me on, dude. Like that was really cool. After seeing that first one, I was just like, oh man, this is so cool. And I literally just went to send you a message, be like, dude, that was so awesome. And then you mentioned like, yeah, you should come on. Like no problem. Like, I would love to be on. That's
Well, I mean, dude, it's it
absolute pleasure.
was it was a natural thing to kind of ask you because of, again, I admire what you do and your attitude around everything and again, kind of you, Josh, and I have the same vibe, and so it's like eh, you asked at the perfect time, or you mentioned, it at the perfect time because I was like, who can I have on next? And as soon as you reached out, I was like, bro, that's easy. Like, we need Jason on.
Dude, I'm so stoked. And like I know maybe I can even try and find help you find some other guys and stuff to be on there. That'd be like really interesting to talk to.
Hmm.
I'll I want to say like I don't know. I was gonna say like I can mention it to Chris and see because I'm trying to push Chris into doing Twitch stuff because he mentioned it on Instagram like a few days ago
Hmm.
and he was helping me out with a mix yesterday and I had a quick video call with him and I mentioned in the tail end I was like yo yeah you mentioned something the other day about Twitch stuff. I was like honestly go for it, man. It couldn't hurt and I know people would be more than willing to want to check that stuff out. So I mean I could maybe shoot it by him and see if he'd be interested in doing like a thing like that. But who knows? I mean, I'm just genuinely excited to see you continue on with the process stuff and and see these other artists because I love hearing people's process. It's so cool.
Yeah, same, dude. And I mean, I have pretty high ambitions and goals for this. I would love to get some big names, and I mean, I have a few friends, that kind of have a name for themselves. Not to kind of name drop, but I would love to get Randy Edwards on here. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a
Oh, the name
videographer.
rings a bell.
He's a videographer and a photographer for like all your favorite bands. He went on tour with them probably multiple times. He's one of the homies. Um, I would love to get one of my biggest goals is Matt Halpern for sure. Um, I think I
I
might be
mean,
able to
like,
make that happen if I have to kind of prove that, this is a thing, you know what I mean? And I want to get a few episodes
right,
under my belt to like really show him like, bro, this is serious. You know what I mean?
dude, I'll try and help you out with that because I would love for Matt to come on there. And if you have that opportunity to get him on there, man, woo,
Yeah.
that'd be so sick. Oh
I
my
mean,
god,
it's
dude.
it's not that far, bro. It's literally within arm reach because of, the things that I've done for GGD. So my biggest thing is just like, at what point do I reach out? Like, Simon Sandnes, I think as you say his name. Um, he's pretty big on
Sanders.
GGD. He has a band called, I think it's called Archetype. Um, but he's really a good friend
Is he
as
the
well.
British guy?
No, I think he's from, I want to say Finland. Um, but if you know the band Leprous, the drummer for Leprous and him are roommates. Well, I don't know if they still are, but amazing dudes, and I would love to get him and Bard on. Simon said he would do it already, so I just kind of set up something with him. But yeah, I have a set of names that I just need to have the guts to ask them. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Well,